What's up, Bulldogs? All right, we're going to be revisiting the Stoic philosophy issue again, and hopefully you can hear me in both ears now. Thanks, guys, for letting me know about the audio issue. I do have it fixed now. So we're going to continue, okay, with what I've been talking about. I originally did a video on my old channel, on the archive channel, on control of your life, and I was talking about my daughter's situation, dealing with some girls, and gave her some Stoic advice on that. And there was a commenter on there who was very upset by this. And he said that Stoic philosophy is a coping mechanism. It doesn't work for everyone. And really his main arguments are that emotional or very sensitive people, it doesn't work for, and that it's not a good philosophy for life. And so I did one video talking about this and addressing some of these points and addressing his comment. But he did email me, and we were supposed to do sort of a debate on this, which I would have liked to have done, but we couldn't work it out with time zones. So he did email me, and he made a lot of statements here, which I want to address. And the reason why I want to address this is twofold. Is one, if he's making these statements, I'm sure that there's other people out there who also have similar viewpoints. And second, it is so critical that you understand why it is important to disconnect the internal from the external, to have non-attachment to the external events, and why it is not other people's responsibility for your emotions, okay? If you constantly are looking at the external, if you're seeking external validation, if you're constantly seeking external approval, if you are seeking external events and things in order to make you happy, and you consider your success in life or your situation in life to be basically circumstance of that is something that arises outside of you, and you're not responsible for that, and you're not in control of those things, then you're going to constantly be the victim in life, and you're never going to have the power to actually change your life. So taking full responsibility of your life and understanding why is very, very important. So I'm going to break apart all the things that he said in this email. I've already addressed them, but I'm going to read you what I've written here and what he's written. And I'm going to give you also a framework for logically figuring out principles in life, the same one that I use in order to address these things. So let's go ahead and jump into this now. And he says here at the beginning, he says, please allow me to take you back to your last video on your retired channel. The video was about controlling your emotions. Hope you remember that video for backstory/context. And so you guys can watch that video. I'll put a link to it in this video, but it's one of the last ones on my retired channel. He says, ultimatums do not remove responsibility. Imagine I point a gun to your head and I give you a choice. It's either you give me all your money or I shoot you. And you choose not to give me all your money and I shoot you. Will you say that I have committed suicide because it was your choice? What about the person holding the gun? Okay. And so this is my answer. I said, this is tiresome. Yes, of course. You commit suicide in that case. In fact, they literally call it suicide by police when a criminal does it. If you jump into a lion's den, is it not also suicide, even though the lions tear you apart? If you jump off a cliff and die, is it gravity that kills you? I think not. It is yourself. And so there's a couple of points I want to make here. Okay, so first of all, you can see how to test a principle, right? If he says, if someone else does something to you, then they have done it and you have no part in it, right? That's kind of his premise. Then I can draw a conclusion. I can say, well, okay, if it's always the action, the thing that happens to you, if it's always their fault, if it's never your responsibility, especially when you don't have a good choice, then it should apply in all situations. So if you jump into a lion's den, okay, if you actually jump into that lion's den, if you make some kind of choice, even though that's a poor choice, is it the lions that have killed you, or have you committed suicide in that case? If you jump off a cliff and die, is it gravity? Does gravity kill you, or are we going to hold gravity responsible, right? So, and the reason why I'm depersonalizing this is because any outside force, anything outside of you that affects you, you still have to, you as a person have to take your responsibility for your role in it if you make a choice, right? And in the case that you have a bad choice, it doesn't change the fact that you have a choice and that you have made that choice. And even if you didn't have a choice, even if something happened to you that you didn't have a choice, okay, in that case, you still have to deal with the consequence of it. It's still your responsibility, right? You cannot say, oh, well, other people are doing this. And when your focus is on the person with the gun instead of you, right? Instead of your choice, you're going to make bad choices, right? In the case where he said, if someone holds a gun to your head and says, give me your money, if you're like, well, you look, man, you shouldn't be holding a gun to my head. Like, you need to care about my feelings. That it's not fair. If you shoot me, it's going to be you killing me. It's not going to be me committing suicide. And then you're like, so I'm not going to give you my money. So do what you want. That's not going to work out well for you, right? It is going to be your choice. It is going to be something that you have done in that case. So you have to take responsibility, right? Again, it doesn't mean that the person holding the gun is not also responsible for their own actions. It doesn't mean that the lions are responsible for their actions. It doesn't mean that gravity, and see, we get into the ridiculousness of this, but the point is from your perspective as a human being, you have to have a central perspective, and you have to look at you, your life, your thoughts, your actions, the things that you can control and influence, and what you do. You cannot look outside and judge other people. And the reason why is because it's no benefit to you. Because it doesn't matter whether someone's right or someone's wrong, the consequences still apply to you. And you have to deal in the context of you and your consequences. So let's move on, because I don't want to belabor this small point. Okay? He says here, to use another example, imagine I'm an all-powerful God and I give you an option to worship me or go to hell. You choose not to worship me and I send you to hell. Did you send yourself to hell, or am I sending you to hell? And what does it say about the character of the one who's directly sending you to hell? Now, again, I'm not going to argue about the character of God or religion, but that's a valid point. But I did say here, the answer to both of these situations is the same. Each person must take responsibility for themselves. There is no universal reality. Everything is a matter of perspective. Einstein taught us this principle. A robber who shoots a person who doesn't give him money kills the man. The man in the situation also commits suicide. A lion kills a man. A man jumping into a lion den kills himself, right? So again, I don't want to belabor this point because we already talked about much of this, but the idea is that, or at least one piece of this, is that there is no universal reality in the sense that it's all a matter of perspective, right? Einstein's theory of relativity says that it is from the observer's viewpoint, okay? And you don't have to understand the complex physics behind this, but the thing to understand is that you have to look at things from the viewpoint of yourself, and each individual has to look at it from their own viewpoint. And so from the viewpoint of you, if you jump into a lion's den, for example, you have committed suicide, okay? Now, from the viewpoint from an observer outside, someone might say, well, the lions ate this man. they tore apart this man, right? From the lion's perspective, it might be like, I had lunch today, okay? Like, all of these perspectives are correct, all right? But the only one that's valuable to you is yours, is from your perspective. How did things go? What choices did you make? Those are the things you have control over in your life, okay? So let's move on here. He says, my point is, number one, there are circumstances where you don't have a choice. E.g., when I kill your daughter and tell you it is your choice how you feel. Okay. You choose to interpret the situation, and then the feelings come as a result of it. But yes, there are biological and instinctual reactions beyond your control. I hit you with a hammer. You, quote, feel pain. You did not choose to feel pain. However, you choose to interpret it as harm. That is your choice. Pain is not a choice. Suffering is always a choice. Okay, so understand this, right? What he's saying here is he's saying that, if I do something, let's say that I do something violent. He said I kill your daughter, and I tell you it's your choice how you feel. To a degree, he's correct, right? Like, there's going to be some kind of instinctual feeling that's going to come up from that. But what I have to understand about that is that it is still my interpretation of that event that occurred. Now, yes, most people would say that is a very horrible and bad event, and most people are going to be upset or angry or have a series of emotions about that thing, right? However, what I'm saying here is that, yes, there may be some kind of reflexive emotion involved, right? But you still have to interpret that event as something, right? For example, if I see a snake, all right, and I'm not even thinking about this, and I see it on the ground, I'm going to get scared, okay? It's just instinctual. Boom, I'm scared, okay? But now I have the ability to process that thing. I'm able to look at it, and now I can choose my action, what I'm going to do, or how I'm going to interpret that situation. Is that snake actually harmful to me? Is it a danger to me? Do I even care about that? I can now make that choice, right? And so And that is what it is for us to be human, is that we have to make that choice, right? We cannot just say, okay, well, I felt this way and that's why I did that. Otherwise, we can justify all kinds of things based on our emotions, right? And the idea is not to necessarily, he's using the word control your emotions, but it's to master them. It's to make it so that your emotions do not master you, because either you will master your emotions or your emotions will master you. All right, let's move on. He says here, number 2, you're not looking at the ways you're making the situation bad. Have you heard about bystander trauma? This is what you're doing to somebody, e.g., your daughter, when instead of being on her side and helping her change the situation, you're on the side of the harsh world. By claiming the world is not wrong, in this case, the girl's insulting her. You become an accessory to the bad situation. And I told him, this is not correct, and it's not what happened. I said the girls were wrong for doing what they're doing, but is their choice. It doesn't matter, because you can't control other people. I'm teaching her personal responsibility for what she can control, which is only her own thoughts and actions, right? So again, he's making a decent argument here, right? I mean, this is a position to take, is to say, okay, in this case, are you trying to say that the world's not wrong, right? Are you on the side of the harsh world? Are you're becoming an accessory to the bad situation? And the answer is no, of course not. Okay. The thing is that, and even to judge, I said in the email in my response that, the girls are wrong, but even to judge something as right or wrong is not even correct. All right. And I know this is a really hard teaching, so this is one that I avoid saying, but there's no good or evil. There's no right or wrong. Okay. Now, I know a lot of people are religious and going to crucify me for this one. I get it. But you have to understand that it is all just events that occur. And we interpret those events how we do. And yes, some things cause pain and harm, right? We allow them to cause harm. Some things we do not want. But truly, what a Stoic says is, look, I don't need anything. Right. The only things I need is that of nature, which nature requires, which is the sustenance to live. I need food. I need sleep. I need a place to live. Shelter from the rain. Right. Those are the things that I need. All right. But I don't need friends. But I desire them. They're good. Right. I don't need this particular situation in my life. I don't need money. I don't need these things. But sure, I do like them. I want those things. Right. However, I don't need them. And there's a huge difference between that. And so what I'm saying here is that when you think about right and wrong, most of the time what we're thinking about is what the general interpretation of that thing is. Okay. So when we say, if someone steals from you, is that wrong? All right. Now, it violates a lot of principles. Okay. And we can talk about that. But the wrongness of it, like, is it bad to do that? That's not for us to really, to really look at, because it doesn't matter. Right. What matters is the principle behind the thing, and then our interpretation of that thing. Because, even Shakespeare says nothing is good or bad except that thinking makes it so. And this is very, very true. Okay. Now, again, this is a very hard teaching, and I'm not saying that you have to just go full into this, but I'm not watering things down for you guys. But if you truly are developing on the path of not just Stoic development, but spiritual development and understanding these things, you stop judging things as right or wrong. Instead, you just look at things. In fact, if you're going to judge anything, you would judge it from a scale of fear to love. So is something a fear-based action or a love-based action? And everything sort of falls in that range. And that's a more important way to look at the world, right? And so us as humans, where should we be going? We should be focusing towards love, not towards fear. We should not be making actions, making choices out of fear. We should be making them out of love. We should be showing that love to people, right? And I agree with those things. And so I think where he's having issues is he's saying that, as a Stoic, as a parent, as a father, you're being unfeeling. You don't care about the plight of your daughter or about the plight of other people. What about this injustice that's happening? What about these girls that are doing the wrong thing? Are you on the side of the world? Are you now becoming an accessory to this, where you are helping them to cause harm in this world? And what I'm saying is, look, here's the deal. All right. They're going to do what they're going to do, right? As a human being, I'm trying to teach my daughter, I'm trying to say, look, you have to be responsible for you. And there's going to be bad people in this world. There's going to be bad things. There's going to be random events that occur to you that are not even malice at all. That is just some random stuff that happens. And you can look at all these things and be like, point the finger and be like, they shouldn't be doing that, or God doesn't like me, or I'm unlucky, or this is unfair. And you could do that, right? But it won't avail you anything, and it won't change those things. Okay. Instead, you have to look internally, and you have to say, well, what can I do? What ability do I have in the situation? And what you have as an ability is always to control or to take charge of your own thoughts and actions. You can interpret the things that happen to you, and then you can choose how to respond and how to interpret those things. And a healthy way to do that is to realize that other people are, quote, NPCs, that they don't, they're going to run their script, and instead you have to now deal with that internally. Like, how are you going to deal with this harsh world that is going to be harsh all the time? Are you going to say that I'll only be happy when the world isn't harsh to me, when people aren't mean to me? If so, you're not going to be happy very often. Are you going to only be happy when all the things align perfectly how you want them to? If so, you're not going to be happy all the time, or very often. Instead, if you say, it doesn't matter, I'm going to choose to be happy, I'm going to choose to interpret things the way that I want to, and let other people do what they're going to do, and I can avoid them. I don't have to be around them, or if I do have to be around them, I don't have to let it internally affect me, right? That's what I'm saying. And it doesn't mean to be totally passive and never take action, and never to stand up for yourself, and never to tell people when you don't like something that they're doing. It just means that you cannot expect that is going to give you the outcome that you require in that situation, because you cannot require an outcome. Okay, let's move on. And I know that some of these things are hard to understand, but we will continue to break these things down. All right. He says, she is not in a prison. Why are you teaching her as if she is in one? Viktor Frankl was in a prison. He had to do what he had to do to survive. Unless you're willing to admit you're providing a prison-like environment for your daughter. This kind of feels like a trap. I said, we're all in a prison, both of one we created for ourselves and one enforced on us. Can you do whatever you like? Just because a prison is large and affords you many comforts does not make it any less of a prison. Freedom is an illusion. It does not exist, yet it is still noble to strive for it. The only true freedom we can experience is the freedom we give to ourselves, which is exactly the kind of freedom I'm teaching her, right? So that's the point here. And I want you guys to understand this, is that you don't have freedom. You just because, like, if you can imagine a prison, all right? And you can imagine a harsh prison where you just have a cell and you just have a bed and a toilet, right? And you'd say, okay, well, I can't go anywhere. I'm in a prison. But there's some pretty nice luxury prisons that exist in the U.S. where they have even TVs, and it's kind of like like a little house, all right? And they have activities. In fact, some of them live better lives than most people do, because they can go and exercise and eat and socialize and stuff like that. Not to say that you want to go to prison, but my point is that just because a prison's nice doesn't mean it's not a prison, right? You are restricted. Like, you have a lot of freedom relatively in your life, probably, but can you do whatever you want to do? No, you are still beholden to a government, to accountability, to laws that make you accountable for your actions and limit those and restrict those in some way. So we're all in some kind of a prison. Now, a lot of the prison that we're in, a majority of it, is the prison we've created for ourselves in our mind, right? The fact that we do not have the ability to do the things that we want to do. We don't have the freedom to do that, and we are restricting ourselves because either we don't have the capability, we lack the resources, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, right? Or we lack the will, we lack the discipline to be able to execute on our actions and to do what we want in the world. And so what I'm teaching my daughter, okay, is not that she's in a prison, but I'm teaching her how to have as much freedom as she can, regardless of the outside circumstances. And that's the point of reading Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, right? Which I doubt this person has actually read that book, but his whole point is that look, he's in the most confining of a prison, right? He's in a Nazi concentration camp, and he still chooses to have freedom in there, right? Because he exercises what freedom he has, right? And so the true freedom that you can experience is the freedom that you give to yourself. If you want a really good book on the subject, read How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World by Harry Brown. Definitely recommend that book. All right, so let's move on here. All right, he says here, in the other video about the alarm not going off and delivering consequences, you gave the reason that future employers will not be interested in excuses if she is late if her alarm did not go off. And my question to you is, why are you training her to be an employable? Are you trying to turn her into a good employee, a 9-to-5 slave, instead of someone creative who can be self-employed like you? You are trying to make her fit into the system / mold of, quote, go to school, get a job, become a wage slave. You're trying to shape her destiny instead of accepting her unconditionally, regardless of her future potential. You care for her potential, not for who she is in reality in the now. There's a lot of assumptions here, but I addressed some of this stuff. I said, this is not accurate on many levels. I'm not training her to be an employee. I'm training her to accept and be responsible for the consequences of her actions. More so, a person who cannot wake up on time and take personal responsibility is much better suited to be an employee, where someone will provide the direct consequences for their actions and police them. An entrepreneur must be able to not only wake up on time, but discipline him or herself to the degree that he can take full responsibility and accountability for his time. Okay, so I didn't address everything that he said here, but I addressed the main thing, which is that I'm not actually, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be even more personally accountable and responsible because, hey, when you have a regular job, a boss tells you what to do. You have consequences for not showing up on time, right? As an entrepreneur, if I don't wake up on time, if I don't work today, I just don't get paid and no one is going to get on my ass, all right? So it is actually way more important to learn these disciplines, right? Now, what I didn't address, and I'll address here, is the idea that am I trying to shape her destiny and not accepting her for who she is now, and instead looking at the potential. And that's not true. Okay. I provide plenty of support for my daughter, validate her emotions and her feelings and who she is and tell her that I'm proud of her, but I am trying to help her. Right. And I'm going to discipline her and I'm going to help, train her in the ways that will benefit her in this world. And then when she becomes out on her own and she turns 18 and she is no longer under my authority, she can choose to do whatever she wants to do. But I am going to take the best care of her that I can at this point, give her as much freedom as I can afford to give her in the sense that as she becomes more responsible and is more worthy of, trustworthy of herself, then I will give her more freedom. And this, again, flows right back from Stoic philosophy. If you listen to Seneca's letters to Lucilius, which I have another channel on that where I talk about that, he tells Lucilius in one of his letters, which is his student, he says, look, you're doing really good, man. And I like you and it's great. However, I still can't quite trust you with yourself, right? And I wish you would see the same thing and that you wouldn't quite trust yourself just yet, right? And that's how it is to raise a child, is that you cannot trust them with themselves quite yet. And as they grow and develop and gain wisdom, then they get to a point where they can be more trusted with themselves. And eventually they're going to be out on their own anyway. But even in a mentorship, you're still going to have that dynamic, right? A person does need some help, right? They need to learn some lessons. They need to be disciplined. And hopefully you teach them the most important discipline of all, which is self-discipline. All right. So he says here, you say you deliver natural consequences, but who gets to determine the natural consequences? It's convenient for people in power to justify what they do by telling themselves that story. Even Hitler thought he was delivering natural consequences when he did what he did. What makes you think you're any different from Hitler in the mindset? So it's funny what is that law where everything devolves into being compared to Hitler? But in our arguments on the internet. I said, this is quite a jump. Now you're comparing me to Hitler. Okay. As a parent, it is my job to create some of the consequences because a child is not an adult and not fully responsible for their actions. And I can use those consequences as training. Just as if you enrolled in a school or a class of training of some sort, the instructor would give you consequences to assist you in your education. And this is the truth, right? I mean, I've struggled with this as a parent, okay? The idea is that I want her to have as many natural consequences as possible. However, I have to impose some unnatural consequences, which I'm calling natural consequences because they are my rules, or they're the consequences that I am going to put in place in order to have discipline, right? And the reason why this has to be done is because just the natural consequences in life, sometimes those things will take a long time in order to catch up to you, and sometimes those results are going to be unacceptable, right? In the sense that a real simple example is if you just said only natural consequences and your child ran out into the street, you would be like, okay, well, when they get hit by a car, then they will have suffered their natural consequence. And that's not a very good philosophy. That principle does not hold up, right? It doesn't make sense. The same thing could be said about a child not being responsible for themselves, right? You are responsible as a parent. If a child does something, you're going to be responsible for that. If they cause economic damage to someone else, who is going to pay for that? It's going to be you. It's not going to be them. And hopefully, as a good parent, you would make them pay you to pay that back. However, these are the things to take into consideration. So I don't know about comparing to Hitler in this case, but I get kind of what he's saying, right? I get what he's saying is like, okay, someone can't just decide what the consequences are for things, right? If you're talking about natural consequences, then, someone who's a dictator might say, okay, well, this is just how it should be. I'm going to deliver the consequences that occur. And to some degree, being a leader does involve doing that to a degree, and hopefully you can make good judgments. But as an adult, things are different. The world is different. You now are completely responsible for yourself, and so your consequences belong completely and wholly to you. Whereas as a parent, the consequences of my child also belong to me in a sense. He says, this is my conclusion. People in general need to take responsibility for each other's emotions. Wow. I need to care for how you feel instead of telling you how to control your emotions. And this world would be a better place if everybody did that. Right now, people are buying luxury items instead of helping people in pain, e.g. the homeless, sick, abandoned, etc., because they have your mindset and of not taking responsibility for others' emotions. It is my belief that we're responsible for each other's emotions instead of being independently happy. And this is your philosophy, and your philosophy might one day turn on you when you are in pain and somebody tells you to control your emotions instead of brainstorming physical strategies to help you. Okay, and so this is what I told him. I said, people need to take responsibility for each other's emotions? This is absurd and illogical. How is this even possible? Suppose you're in a situation where you have to choose between two women who love you. Which do you pick? You will surely hurt one. You're responsible for your own feelings and not the feelings of others. How about if I feel like you should give me all your money or I will be sad? Are you responsible for my sadness in that case if you refuse? You are bitter because you're poor and have the victim mindset. You think it's someone else's fault and responsibility. I'm not saying to not care about people. Of course, you should care about people and help them. But you do that not because you're obligated or responsible for people's feelings, but out of love. That is a much truer motive. Mastering your emotions is always beneficial. It does not mean to not have them, but merely to not act upon them. Act from rational thinking. Helping a person does not require you to act on emotion, but to make a rational choice, right? So a couple things here I want to say. So this idea of being responsible for other people's emotions, again, we can take this, we can test this, right? If this is a principle, then all principles should be tested and they should hold true under all circumstances. That's what a principle is. It's a universal truth, right? And there's a lot of principles that I have found in life and that I live by that fit the bill, that they do pass in all cases. And so if you say, I need to be responsible for other people's emotions, then what about irrational emotions? What about when it's a violation of my rights and I am going to be upset by some action? Whose emotions do you value? Or what if you have a conflict between two people and you can only make one person happy? Are you now going to be miserable because you can never make everyone happy, right? This is what it is when you try to please everyone. And this is not the path of life. Instead, you should try to please yourself, okay? And it doesn't mean that you should be cold and cruel to other people, right? I help plenty of people. And hopefully what I'm providing you today is help to you. However, you do have to take responsibility for your own emotions, and every person does. That doesn't mean that just because someone needs to take responsibility for their emotions that you should emotionally abuse them or you should cause harm to them or hurt them in some way or not care about them, okay? But ultimately, again, I say this all the time, is the advice I give you is for you. It's not for you to beat other people up with. So if I tell you to be responsible for your own emotions and to master your own emotions and that you're responsible, that no one can harm you, but it is you who choose to be harmed by interpreting the things, that's for you. You take that and you apply that knowledge to your life. Do not take that and beat someone else up with it and say, okay, well, if I'm responsible for my own emotions, and I can't be harmed unless I choose to allow myself to be harmed, then I can apply that to other people. And so I don't care what I say to them. They're responsible for their emotions. I can tell them whatever they want. I can call them names and belittle them and bully them. And I can physically harm them because it's their choice to consider it hurt or to consider it harm. Okay, that's not the point. Okay, the point is that you have to look at it from your perspective, right? Again, and some people would say that's a selfish perspective, but it is the only one that you have, right? And ultimately, people will choose self-preservation over over other things. And when you think you're making altruistic choices, many times you're not, because if your own needs aren't being met, you cannot meet the needs of others. You will not feel like that is even makes sense in your worldview. And the other thing I was going to say here is that, I'm not picking on this guy, but you might say, well, why did you call him bitter? Because you're poor and have the victim mindset. Because it is the truth. Because I see where this is coming from, right? He's upset, and this is the thing. Look, I know a lot of you guys that are following me. You're not in the best financial situation. I got it. Okay, I know that some of you are in third world countries. I got that. I get it. I understand that I am fortunate to have been born where I am in the United States, to a degree. I understand that there are certain things that I have that you do not have, and certain advantage in life from an economic perspective that I've had that you haven't. Now, again, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Okay, I didn't come from a rich family. I came from a relatively poor family in the United States, and I made something of myself. However, the thing is what will keep you poor is this mindset, right? If you constantly are like, oh, rich people, oh, people are spending their money on luxury items instead of helping the poor, it's their money, it's their choice, it's their ability to do what they want with their life. And if you think that it's because they're doing those things that you are in the situation that you're in, then you're never going to get out of your situation. The best way to get out of your situation is to take full personal responsibility, not to blame anyone, not to say life is unfair, even though it may be. I'm not saying that life is fair. It is to forget about those things, and so to focus on what you can do, what can you change, what can you do in your life. And again, it doesn't mean that you're going to be Elon Musk. I'm not going to be Elon Musk, okay? I don't have the ability or the advantages to do that. I mean, maybe I do, but I'm not exercising them. The odds of that happening are very slim, but I don't need to be. I don't need to be the best in the world. I don't need to be the most financially successful. I don't need to compare myself to others in order to gain value. And you don't either. And so, yeah, maybe you're born in a third world country. Maybe you're in one right now. Maybe it's hard for you. Maybe, you'd love to come to the US and you'd love to have the opportunities, but you do have some opportunities and you do have some ability and you do have the internet, right? And so, yeah, you don't have to become rich, but you can improve your situation. And yeah, maybe your best might not be as good as someone who is in in the Western world. Maybe that's the case, but that it doesn't matter. It's still an improvement for you, and it's still something that you can strive for. And so don't compare yourself to others, and don't worry what other people are doing. So much worrying about what other people are doing is wasting your time instead of using it to actually improve and better yourself. Okay. So the last thing here is he says, I will keep on sharing my comments, philosophical as we go along. My name is Yuga. By the way, I don't think this is, I'm not worried about revealing his name here because I don't think there's nothing here that is, something that someone should be scared of having out on the internet. It's like we're going to have a debate. So, but maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't feel like there's any real personal information here. Okay. My name is Yuga, by the way. I am also the one who left a long comment on the video about controlling emotions. You can see this is a hot topic for me. And I said, nice to meet you. I appreciate your viewpoint. My suggestion for you, though, is to do more listening and less talking. You have knowledge and you're smart, but you lack wisdom and discernment. You will not acquire it by thinking you already have it. Ask questions instead of making accusations and contradicting statements. Okay. And I say this out of love, right? I don't say this to be mean or spiteful, truly, even though it might come across that way in an email. But, I get this a lot, right? There's a lot of people that comment, that say things. Look, just reserve some judgment. If you're curious, ask questions. All right. Don't assume that other people don't know what they're doing. Ask some questions and see, especially someone who's more successful than you, right? I mean, again, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I have read a lot of books. I have applied a lot of knowledge and have gained a lot of experience in life and have done a lot of things. Okay. And I'm not 100% right all the time. Don't get me wrong. I love debates and philosophy and learning and growing. However, a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you guys here, there's a reason why, right? And sure, maybe I'm not right, so question it. So give me some questions. But don't just assume that it's wrong just because it doesn't make sense to you at this point, because that will prevent you from growing. That will prevent you from gaining wisdom. Let me see. And then let's just see what he replied to on this. He said, One last thing, you have asked who Stoicism will not work for. My answer, not factual, is people born sensitive soft. I'm not convinced the best solution is to make them Stoics or hard. What if your daughter's nature is to be sensitive and soft? It sounds to me like you value survival more than happiness. I just want you to consider that we would not be here talking about people needing Stoicism if more people were soft and sensitive and cared about each other's happiness. You would not even need to have that conversation with your daughter to control her emotions if others believed it was their responsibility to care about how she feels. Now, I hear you asking, what if your daughter uses this as a chance to manipulate? And my answer is that we have to risk it. If she takes advantage of that, it's okay. After all, we value each other's happiness over everything. I agree with you on a lot of things. Thank you for taking your time to answer an email. I appreciate your time. And I appreciate you, man. I don't want to come down on you and think that I'm trying to attack you. I'm just trying to attack your ideas because they're not good ones, to be honest with you. All right. And so let's address this final thing that he said here. Okay. So he's saying that Stoicism will not work for people born sensitive and soft. And he's not convinced the best solution is to make them Stoics or hard. Well, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. Okay. Women are more emotional. They're more sensitive. Okay. However, there is something wrong with being, but with that sensitivity causing you to make bad choices and wrong actions and to actually cause you to be unhappy in life because your expectations are that other people will care about you. Okay. Again, the advice I give you is for you. Don't beat other people up with it. So even though you should be stoic and you should be hard, you should treat other people as if they are soft. It is true. Okay. You should be gentle and kind to other people, even though you should be able to take a beating yourself. Okay. That's how it is. And that's what I teach my daughter. I teach her to treat other people kindly and gently, and for her herself to be able to manage her own emotions and not to be swept away with them. It doesn't mean that they're not valid. It doesn't mean that I don't treat her with softness and sensitivity, which I do, of course, because I love her. And that's the thing that you have to understand about this. And he says, well, what if your daughter's nature is to be sensitive and soft? That's fine. Okay. But he said, you sound to me like you value survival more than happiness. Wow. And here's the thing about that. It's actually the opposite. Right? Because what I'm telling you, the principles I'm giving, the Stoic principles that I'm giving you, they will give you more happiness, more tranquility, more joy than anything. Right? That's what I'm valuing here. I'm telling you how to have inner peace. I'm telling you how to not be disturbed by the world and what other people are doing. That's what I'm telling you how to do. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying here? Is that survival is not the goal. Okay. I mean, yes, you need to survive, but there are things greater than just mere survival. If you're just merely surviving, what are you doing in life? I'm telling you how to live the good life. That's what the Stoic is telling you how to do, is how to live the good life. How to live the good life is to realize that in all circumstances, you can be happy. You don't require a set of circumstances in order to be happy. Now, listen to what I'm saying, because this applies to you, because wherever you are in life right now, you think that there's something that's going to make you happy. No. You're going to keep on chasing the thing. Seneca, in his letters, he talks about, suppose that a man is given a palace and all these fancy clothes and fancy meals and all of these things and all the luxuries in life. Guess what that will cause him? It will only cause him to crave more. Okay? And he says multiple times in his letters, he says, look, if those things if things in life would have satisfied you or would made you happy, you would have already been satisfied. But you've already gotten things and you're not happy now. So what makes you think that you're going to be happy when you get something in the future? Every time that you've gained something or you've increased in life, you have just wanted more and you've not been happy. So do not believe that this is the thing that is going to bring you happiness, right? What is really going to bring you happiness is philosophy, is Stoic principles, is meditating on these thoughts, these ideas that I'm teaching you. Again, check out my Stoic channel if you're interested in that. All right. And really disconnecting yourself from the external, from the expectations, right? This is the same thing that Buddha said, okay? It's this same concept, this idea, is that what causes you misery is your desires, right? It's the things that you want, that you feel like what a Stoic would say that you need, right? It's really confusing because Stoics talk about need and want, and they say that you only need the things that nature provides you, and a Stoic wants other things, right? And so what they mean in that context of a want is something that you can do without. But what most people do is their desires become needs, okay? And it means that I need to have this in order to be happy. And that's what a need is. That's what a desire is, right? Again, looking at Buddhism, it's the same thing. It's not saying that you can't enjoy things, that you can't want things. It's just saying that you can't need them. They can't be required in order for you to be happy, okay? And if you can live your life like that, you're going to have a much, much better life. And I'll just the final point that he says, which is a good one, which he says that, look, hey, if more people were soft and sensitive and cared about other people's happiness, you wouldn't even have to have that conversation, right? He says that, if other people would care about how she feels, right? And someone could take advantage of it, but it's worth it if we just value each other's happiness over everything, okay? And to a degree, I agree with this, right? I think that should be your perspective as a human being, in the sense that you should care about other people and you should try to do the best good that you can in this world, okay? However, you still have to recognize that you're not responsible for their emotions. You're responsible for your actions. So don't take the responsibility and put it in the wrong place and say that I'm responsible for other people's happiness. Instead, say that I am responsible for living a good life, for treating people kindly, which comes from me, not from them. The responsibility, I don't owe them anything. I owe myself that I should be a man of character and act in such a way that befits such a man, that I should be noble, that I should be a person of generosity, that I should be a person of caring and kindness. Not because I owe them anything, not because I care about their emotions or that I'm responsible for their emotions, right? And see, how much of a better place does that come from? Right? And how little are you going to be manipulated in that case? Because it's not about them. It's about you. All of the stuff, anything that you try to ever make about someone else, you're going to fail at. It's not going to be of value to you. Instead, it all is about you. What can you do? How can you handle situations? Right? Again, like I said, I did a video on this, and I'll keep on saying this. What I say is for you. It's not for you to beat other people up with. Right? You need to be stoic and hard and to be able to withstand all of these things that are going to come at you in life. Every person needs that training. Every person needs to be able to do that. But it doesn't make you hard to other people. It just makes it so that you are an impenetrable fortress and you don't allow things to harm you. But it doesn't mean that you go out and cause harm because of that. I'll see you tomorrow.